Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alex, and if you are here from my TikTok about videos of baby sleep, then you are in the right place. This is my free course, everything that I have learned about baby sleep according to their brain maturation, not just some random milestones. These are actual milestones in their brain. This has helped my kids sleep through the night, both as babies. My daughter at 2 months, she was a little easier, and my son at 9 months, and they now sleep amazingly. And these are foundations that need to be set for life, so my kids are set, and I hope to help you too. Now you are in luck because this used to be a paid course, okay? I used to promote it, and it cost, I think I had it between $15 and $20. And honestly, it's worth even more than that. I find myself in a different phase of life now. My kids are a little bit older. I don't have infants anymore, so I don't feel like making videos promoting it. And I thought, what a waste to not help people. I spent a lot of time on this. I know that these things work. So here you are. It is free for you. Down below, you'll see a link, a Canva link that just heads you to their website, and you can get a copy of my document for this. You don't need it to understand the video, but it does help. Some people like to look at written format of things. I do. If you don't have a Canva account, that's fine. You can just make one for free. And in return, I ask that you just like this video if it helps you, which I'm sure that it will. And subscribe if you're into bookish stuff. I do mom blogs too, all including books and reading as well, because that's a big part of my life. So I hope this can help you. Leave a comment below. Let me know how old your baby is, what you're struggling with, if I can help. This video is for you. Hi everyone, thank you so much for purchasing my course. Honestly, it means a lot that you spent your money and energy on me. And honestly, it means a lot. So thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your love with me. Once you purchase the course, you will have also received a PDF which goes through everything we're going to talk about. But if you're more of a visual learner, you can check that out along with what I'm going to be talking about here in the video. So to start, just a little bit about me. I am a mom. I am 33 years old. My son is 8 months old, and my daughter is 5 years old. 5 months now, 5 years old. I was a bilingual Spanish elementary educator for 9 years before this. This is my second year not teaching. I am being a stay-at-home mom and content creator, and honestly, I'm loving it. With my daughter, who was born first, again, she's 5 years old, I did a ton of research about baby sleep and felt sort of prepared when she was born to give her healthy sleep foundations. I did sleep train her, and at about 2 months of age, she was sleeping through the night, which don't count on that. I think it's kind of more of a rarity, but it was amazing. And she was formula fed, and my son is breastfed, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But my son, when he came around, we were a little overwhelmed with having 2 kids. We had him bed sharing with us, so sleeping on us or next to us, next to me every night. He would only really contact nap. And it got to a point where he wouldn't go to sleep unless we were in there. And when we would try to sneak out, like for at nighttime, he would wake up. So I was ending up being in there from like 6 p.m. to 6, 7 a.m. And it just wasn't working for us anymore. Being on TikTok, I got freaked out about sleep training because so many people talk about how it's so harmful emotionally. And I understand that. But it was harmful in every way possible to our entire family. For our baby at 4 months to be waking up every 45 minutes at night for that 4-month sleep progression. And throughout this course, I'm going to be talking about why it's not really a regression. Part of those things are true, but there's much more to it. And I'm going to be explaining all of that in this course. So here we go. So here I'm on slide 4 of the PDF presentation. We're going to be talking about newborn sleep foundations. I'm guessing because of the title of the course that you're not here with a brand new baby. You're here maybe at 6 weeks or after because you're having some sleep problems. But I am going to talk about some foundations that you can lay for your baby from day 1 when they come home to encourage healthy sleep from now and their entire life. And don't worry if you have not set these foundations and are experiencing some problems, because even, when my second baby came around, I was in the same boat. So don't judge yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. And perhaps in the future, if there's a want or a need, I can talk more specifically about the newborn sleep foundations. For now, here's a brief rundown of newborn sleep tips that you can begin employing immediately. Wow, I just did my entire spiel that took probably 5 minutes and I wasn't recording, so here we go. We're on page 4 of the PDF if you are following along. This is quick tips to set foundational sleep habits for your newborn from day 1. So the number 1 of our quick tip is soothing skills. You want to teach soothing skills to your baby from day 1. Basically, you want to allow them to learn how to soothe themselves instead of, say, you rocking them into a deep sleep every single night and then sneakily putting them to bed. That could cause some trouble later. You want to teach them to soothe themselves. It's fine and of course natural and good for us to soothe our babies when they're tired. Do some rocking, do whatever else you do. Swaying, patting the butt, soft sounds like a sound machine. We use that every night. But you want to allow your baby to begin doing a little bit of that work themselves. So from day 1, maybe even just once per day. If you don't want to do it every single nap, wait till baby is drowsy, rock them a bit, soothe them a bit, put them down before they're asleep. So they're going to be drowsy, put them down while they're still awake and let them work it out. Okay, quick tip number 2 is catch them at the right time. So throughout the day, watch your baby very closely. You'll begin to become attuned to when they're showing that they're tired. Start getting them down to sleep when they are showing that they're tired, when they are showing their tired cues, not after. Because if you miss that window, it's going to be harder for them to fall asleep because they're already overtired. They have more adrenaline to keep them awake, and it won't be easy for them to put themselves to sleep. Versus if you get it at the perfect time, their body is already propelling itself into sleep and they'll have an easier time going down. That's what everybody means when they say drowsy but awake. So when your baby is tired looking and about to fall asleep but still awake. Tip number 3, drowsy signs. We already talked about that a little, but each baby will have different drowsy signs. You will come to know them for your own baby. Some of them would be pulling on the ears, rubbing eyes, yawning. Every time I say the word yawn, I yawn. Is that like a thing? I hear my baby calling out right now. My husband just put him down to nap. He still likes to protest sometimes. When my baby was younger, one of his drowsy signs, he would always, I've heard a lot of people talk about this, always get this red, just redness all along here. Somebody called it the low battery signal. So maybe that might be a drowsy sign for your baby. And again, start getting babies ready to sleep as they're showing those cues, not after. And again, you can soothe them, rock them, but just every time they go to sleep, don't rock them to sleep every single time. They're going to have a harder time learning to do it by themselves. And finally, the last quick tip is have a predictable bedtime routine that you do every night. Babies really rely on routine, as do us adults. So they'll begin to associate those things that you do at nighttime with nighttime sleep, and they will really benefit from it. Some people do baths every night before bed. I honestly don't. My son hated baths. And honestly, I don't think babies need a bath every single night. But hey, some people like it and it does soothe babies. So if you want, do that. Other things for bedtime routine would be reading books, singing songs, rocking in the rocking chair. Whatever you guys like to do for bedtime, do that every single night. So those are 4 quick tips to start from day 1 with your baby so they can begin learning how to put themselves to sleep. And they're not just doing it themselves, you are encouraging it by the things that you do, like looking for their sleepy cues, getting a bedtime routine down. If you haven't been employing them, don't feel bad. Okay, we're now on page 5 of the PDF. So if you happen to be following along in there. I used to be a teacher, okay? And honestly, yeah, everybody learns, there's different types of learners. So visual, kinesthetic, auditory. I'm a very auditory learner, but I also like to follow along reading. So anyway, we're on page 5. All right, changes at 6 weeks. One of the exciting changes when babies turn 6 weeks is that they begin social smiling. So like they're not just smiling because they had gas or whatever. because they're having a dream. They're smiling because they know that you understand they're smiling. It's a form of communication, hence the name social smiling. This means that they're like having a ton of fun with you. You're building a relationship. It's honestly like such a fun time. Makes me a little emotional. I just love that time. It's so sweet. I didn't love the lack of sleep. Honestly, I don't do well with that, but which is why I've been focusing on it so much. Along with that added social interaction, they're having a lot more stimulation than before. So that can mean that they become more overstimulated more easily. Okay, that's the first change at 6 weeks of age. Now we're moving on to page 6. Another huge important change that happens at 6 weeks of age is that baby's circadian rhythm starts to form and dictate that they have an earlier bedtime than before each night. So a circadian rhythm is the internal clock that every human being has in their body that dictates when we're awake and when we're asleep. It's ruled by melatonin and other hormones like that. So if you go along with this, you're going to have a super easy time. Well, depending on each baby, but you're going to have a way easier time getting your baby to sleep well if you follow this circadian rhythm versus if you go against it. And I'll be explaining why. Okay, so getting a little more into it. At 6 weeks of age, babies start to sleep longer at night. So if you're already at that phase, you might notice that they've been sleeping longer stretches, usually like 4 to 6 hour stretches around the 6 week mark. And then again, like I mentioned, at this time their brain circadian rhythm is developing, and it dictates that they go to bed for nighttime between 6 and 8 p.m. So at 6 weeks of age, so important, I will shout it from the mountaintops forever, your baby should be going to bed between 6 and 8 p.m. Major point here. Okay, now how do you know, like, what, 6, 7, 8? Have to kind of try different things and see what works for your baby. Don't automatically assume a time. 8 might be way too late for your baby. 6 might be way too early for your baby. Personally, both my kids went down at 6 and they still do. My daughter is 5 and she still goes to bed at 6. Now that she's gotten a little older, I've been a little more lenient, but I can tell when she doesn't go to bed at 6, she's crabbier. Also, to know when to put your baby down within that window, watch them between 4 and 5 p.m. Watch for sleepy cues. If they start to get really grouchy, first of all, they could be overtired, so you're going to have to get them rested and then see. This takes like a lot of trial and error, but these guidelines are going to really help you out. It's based on their brain biology, so it's not just like some made up thing. That is why the witching hour is during this time. If they're not well rested, they're getting close to their brain saying, oh, it's almost nighttime and you're super overtired. Like, get your little booty to bed. So just start watching for those sleep cues around that time. Maybe your baby's overtired and they want to go to bed at 6, but then after a couple weeks, they're getting much better rest and they want to stay up a little longer. Just kind of go with it. Also, of course, every baby's different, like I said, but they do all, per their brain biology, need to go to bed between 6 and 8 p.m. to be well rested. This is dictated by their internal clock. Yeah, 6 might seem really impractical for like busy people, working people. I'm not a working person anymore, but when my daughter was a baby and up until a year and a half ago, I was working. I was a teacher and I would get done at 3:30. I would get home to town around 4:15. Pick her up, hurry up and make dinner and get her down by 6. It was like a mad dash, but I was willing to do it and like put myself through that stress because I knew she was well rested. Her language development is crazy. Y yo hablo español, so sabía que ella también iba a estar bien en el lenguaje. I knew that my daughter would be good in language development as well because I am. Not to toot my own horn, but you know. You have to sometimes. And one little note here, naps are still going to be inconsistent at this age. Wake windows are usually 1 to 2 hours, depending on your baby. And again, make sure to get them down before they get overtired. There's no real sleep schedule for naps really during this time, unfortunately, to plan. But when they're this little, they're easily portable. They don't care where they sleep, you know. Whereas my son now, he has been sleeping in his car seat a little bit better, but when they get older, at least my kids always preferred their bed over being out somewhere. But anyway, naps are not going to be consistent yet. Okay, we're now on page 7 if you're following along with the PDF. This is a quick note, but it's really important. Due date versus birth date. So anytime we're talking about sleep, so like in this entire course, or if you know anything about Leaps, which is the Wonder Weeks app, they always use due date versus birth date. This is because the science behind both these things, the sleep and the leaps, is based on their brain maturation, which starts at conception, the moment your baby is conceived, which has really nothing to do with the day your baby was born. So due date, and I'll give you an example. My baby was due, well, my daughter was born 1 day before her due date, and my son was 3 days after his due date, so it doesn't make like a ton of difference for me, but for some people it can. So say your baby was born 3 weeks early. That's a significant difference between the due date and the birth date. So for this imaginary baby, always consider the baby's age 3 weeks behind. I'm going to read here because I wrote it down so that I can conceptualize it. It's in the PDF. So this imaginary baby was born on Monday, August 1st, 2022. I looked at the calendar to do this. By her birth date, she would be 6 weeks old on Monday, September 12th, by the day she was born. But you don't want to go by that for this baby. You want to go by the due date. So because she was born 6 weeks early, her due date would have been August 22nd. She would be, for all purposes regarding sleep and leaps, she would be 6 weeks of age on Monday, October 3rd, instead of Monday, September 12th. So that's quite a difference. So this baby's parents would be anticipating her getting longer stretches of sleep at night, starting to social smile, and needing an earlier bedtime at 6 weeks of age on her due date. So October 3rd, not September, 12th. So that's a big change, right? So if your baby was significantly or even a little bit early or late, don't feel freaked out if like they're not at this milestone yet, because you got to go by their due date. And I'm not sure if this goes for cognitive development and skills. I imagine it would. Or fine motor, large motor skills. I would think so, but I honestly don't know. But for the purposes of sleep and leaps, go by the baby's due date. Okay, we're on page 8, weeks 7 through 8, when sleep trouble can arise. If, per your baby's due date at 6 weeks old, you don't start putting them to bed early between 6 and 8 p.m., and again, figure out what works for your baby, it's very possible that your baby's going to start having some sleep problems. They're going to be grumpy, overtired, overstimulated because their brain and body are producing more cortisol and other stress hormones like adrenaline to keep them awake, to override their circadian rhythm, because that's a basic functioning system for our sleep. So if we're not getting them down, they're going to be producing more of those crazy hormones to keep them awake, going against their body's internal clock. And if this continues for a prolonged period, it's going to be really hard to get your baby down, and it's going to be harder for them to stay asleep, because those hormones are going to be keeping them up. Those stress hormones also suppress the production of melatonin. That is why when we are stressed as parents, well, one of the reasons that it's hard for us to sleep, because all those stress hormones put the production of melatonin down. At 7 or 8 weeks after that 6-week mark, when they've started social smiling and getting a ton more interaction and stimulation during the day, and when they need an earlier bedtime, if we haven't followed it, those two things paired together can make for a very overtired, overstimulated baby. And we're on page 9 now, continuing with this. So why am I saying that it's not a sleep regression? Because some babies do experience sleep regressions at this time, but like the whole premise of this course is that it's not really a regression, it's a sleep milestone. From what I've researched and read about sleep regressions, a lot of people say that like babies suddenly stop sleeping as well because they are acquiring these new skills, learning a bunch of stuff, and getting a bunch more stimulation. But they end there with the reasoning why. And those things are true, but there's more to it. From what I've researched, this is only one piece of the puzzle with sleeper regressions. So babies during regressions can experience a sudden loss of sleep because they're acquiring all these new skills, but it's also because they're overstimulated and wired, have all those stress hormones, and we're not getting them down following their circadian rhythm. That's a major point that's missing the whole sleep regression theory, in my opinion, and from what I've read and from my experience with my own kids. Yeah, my experience with my second baby, I was just really overwhelmed with going from 1 to 2 kids. When I was pregnant with him, didn't even think it would be a thing. I was just like, whatever, we're going to do it. And then I was like, oh shit, this is hard. So I didn't really have bedtime routines. I did not let him soothe himself to sleep at all. I did get him down for the earlier bedtime at 6 weeks, but like I said, I would have to lay there the entire night from 6 p.m. on. And if I would sneak out, he'd wake up like 10 minutes later. And when he started waking up every 45 minutes throughout the entire night at 3.5 months old, so right on that 4-month sleep regression, that's when I decided to sleep train him. I'll be talking a little bit about that later. We're on page 10 now, talking about weeks 7 through 8, an example of how they're not really sleep regressions, but sleep milestones. So on my social media, a lot of parents have been commenting the same type of scenario they're experiencing with their baby at this age, 7 to 8 weeks, that they've tried all different bedtimes between 6 and 8 p.m., but their baby still fusses like from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., no matter what they do, and their baby won't nap during the day. Again, this is all at the 7 to 8 week mark. This whole scenario, again, that I saw a lot of parents commenting is a prime example of how it's not just a sleep regression, it's a sleep milestone. So the regression, like babies have stopped sleeping because they are doing all these new skills and becoming overstimulated. They have a sleep debt. They have a debt of sleep that needs to be paid back. They need to get their sleep. They're not functioning well. Also, again, that missing piece, their circadian rhythm needs to be followed. That's a huge other part of the sleep milestone and a huge part of why they're not sleeping well right now. So what's the solution? I've been a little apprehensive to put this on social media because, again, people lose their absolute shit, especially on TikTok, about sleep training. I understand why completely, and that's why I didn't do it right away with my second baby. But the first solution is to sleep train. I'll be talking more a little bit about that later. Or to temporarily employ a 5:30 bedtime, 5:30 p.m. bedtime. If you don't want to sleep train, you can try this first. So we're now on page 11 about the 5:30 bedtime reset. So yeah, that might sound absolutely insane, like 5:30. What? That's so early. Yes, I know. I've done this before with my daughter, and it works. So again, you're working with a really overtired baby that has a lot more stress hormones that are suppressing the production of melatonin. So you have to just like cut that cycle off and get that baby to sleep. You do a temporary 5:30 bedtime. Get them down at 5:30 for a few nights. See if it helps. An example of when you would want to do this is like if you've been on vacation for a week and you're on vacation, you're away from home, nobody's getting really like the best sleep ever. When you come home, everybody's overtired. You could do this temporary 5:30 bedtime reset. Again, you could do this if you're opposed to sleep training at first, or if you've been on vacation or some other circumstance that makes it necessary. So, yeah. We're getting into sleep training, page 12. Honestly, yes, people on TikTok and social media go insane over this. But in the real world, my friends and people I know, a ton of people have sleep trained and it's more normal. So anyway, take that for what it is. I haven't mentioned this much and I will mention it at the end, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a sleep specialist. I'm a mom, which is also valuable. I'm not going to say just mom. I'm a mom. Okay. And I was a teacher. So I worked with kids, but I successfully sleep trained 2 kids and they sleep really well. They're very smart kids. So, like I say here in the PDF, I'm not going to go into this a ton because I feel like the foundations and understandings of sleep milestones are more important than talking about how you sleep train. And you need to have all of the things that I've already talked about in place before you even think about sleep training. You can't just throw your baby to cry the whole night alone if you haven't even followed their circadian rhythm or set any bedtime routines or anything like that. That would just be neglectful. And the reason that I think sleep training is so important is because if you haven't followed all of these things that we've already talked about, your baby is in this vicious cycle of stress hormones and overtired and wired, and their body literally can't go to sleep. You just have to cut the snake off at the head. Isn't that the saying? I don't know. You just have to intervene swiftly and get that fixed. So to sleep train, basically, in a nutshell, you put your baby down when it's bedtime for the night and give them space to put themselves to sleep. Do your bedtime routine, do your soothing, again, put them down drowsy but awake, and let them put themselves to sleep. This is page 13 continued. They might cry, they probably will cry if they're overtired and overstimulated and in that vicious cycle of sleep debt. It really sucks to hear them cry and let them cry, and honestly, it can be completely heartbreaking, and it was for me both times, which is why people have issue with it, which I understand. But if your baby has a sleep debt, if they are so overtired and wired that they can't sleep, this is a physical necessity. And if it doesn't get remediated immediately, it's going to continue causing problems. Babies who don't sleep through the night for like 3 years, I could never. I would just drop dead. I need like 9 hours of sleep, which I'm obviously not getting right now. But there are so many negative effects to children who aren't well rested. This is a physical necessity. I have not seen any emotional damage done to my children. They're both very, very attached to me in a healthy way. But if you're mortified by the crying, I understand very much. And just keep telling yourself you are doing this for your baby's health, physical well-being, and mental cognition. A little bit more about how do you do this. If you don't want to let your baby cry indefinitely, put a max amount of time on it. Put a cap. For example, say tonight I'm going to let my baby cry for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to go in and intervene. And then write down how much you let them cry each night. Typically after 5 nights, it'll stop, probably even sooner. If you don't want to leave your baby alone to cry, you can be in the room with them and just not interacting with them if that makes you feel better. Do know though that each time you go in or each time you are present, you're reinforcing the fact that you're gonna be there. And at this age, when the social smiling starts, they know that you're there. They're crying because they're so stimulated, overstimulated, tired. And being not well rested really affects mental health and physical health, like I said. Okay, we're on page 14, continuing the ways to sleep train. So obviously we know this. Baby is sick or hungry, then you go in if that's why they're crying. It can be kind of hard to know if they're crying because they're hungry or not. Obviously, babies who are younger than 3 months feed a lot more. Starting at 3 to 4 months and then up until 9 months, it's normal for babies to get up to eat 0, 1, or 2 times a night. My son is 8 months and he just slept through the other night for the first time. I think he randomly has done it a few other times, but he slept through the night the first time with not getting up. And last night he got up only at 5 a.m., so it was kind of morning, and ate and then went back down till 8 a.m. So yes, obviously if they're hungry or sick, go in there. After 6 weeks of age, again, they're able to sleep 4 to 6 hours at night. Take note of when they last ate. And when you're sleep training, be really diligent about noticing everything that you've done throughout the day in regards to their sleep and their eating patterns. Take a lot of notes. I was sleep training my son. I wrote everything down, literally everything for 2 weeks. That really helped me notice patterns and things that were working, things that weren't. And one last thing about sleep training, where does your baby sleep when you sleep train? That's up to you, obviously following safe sleep guidelines. We put my son into his own room in his crib when we started sleep training. As I mentioned, he was before sleeping in bed with us, which is not per safe sleep guidelines. Whatever, it's up to you. Some people sleep train with their baby in their bassinet in their room. Just make sure baby has their own space so they know this is my sleeping space. I go to sleep by myself here. So those were all my suggestions about sleep training. There are other methods besides cry it out, and I honestly don't really know what those are. In my experience, if you keep intervening, you're just going to prolong the whole process, the process of them being overtired and not getting that physical necessity. filled. So that's up to you. All right, we're on page 15 and we're talking about the dreaded 4-month sleep regression. That's perhaps why many of you are here. That's the point in time where I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. We are intervening with sleep training. That's what this section is all about. So 3 to 4 months of age, we're at another important sleep milestone and baby brain change. Always go by the due date, not the birth date. And this involves their daytime sleep. If at 2 months of age, around that 7 or 8 week mark where some people start experiencing problems, if you felt like that was too early to sleep train, 4 months, 3 to 4 months is a great time because there's another shift happening in baby's brain circadian rhythm, and now's a good time to do it. You will be setting your baby up for success by following their sleep rhythms to their newly emerging circadian rhythm for daytime sleep nap. Again, this dreaded 4-month sleep regression, as I've mentioned, it's not just a regression. It's not just they stop sleeping because they have newly gained skills and overstimulated from them. It's because also a new sleep cycle is emerging. And if you're not following that, they're going to be overtired, wired, can't go to sleep. Vicious cycle. And this happened to my son right on cue, 3.5 months. It was terrible. So you already know what I did. Okay, now we're on page 16. Talking about what exactly happens at this 3 to 4 month mark. Naps consolidate. So before this time, naps were kind of inconsistent. Now they're going to be consolidated. They're going to be longer and at more predictable times because that's what baby's brain is dictating at this time. Their internal clock has now developed for daytime sleep. So for naps before this time, before 3 to 4 months of age, you kind of just watch your baby, get them down when they're showing sleepy cues. Okay. Now it's going to be a little different. You're going to still watch your baby for sleepy cues, but also watch the clock because their circadian rhythm is on point now for nap time. Here's some important times, some important scheduling information. Again, we're talking about 3 to 4 months of age. The first nap should start between 9 and 10 a.m., the first nap of the day. Within this window, watch your baby, see when they start getting tired, get them down. Also consider what time they got up that day. The wake windows during this age are usually 2 to 3 hours. Something important about naps, they should be at least 45 minutes to be substantial and to be renewing. 1 hour is better. I'm going to talk more about the other naps of the day, scheduling those, but if baby is not wanting to nap during this time, you can sleep train for naps at this time, 3 to 4 months of age. That's what I did. At 3.5 months, I just full-blown sleep trained for everything. Naps, every nap, every day, every nighttime. Okay. Took me about 5 days till the crying stopped, and then about 2 weeks to solidify everything. In my opinion, that's kind of the way to go. So for the naps, since they should be 1 hour, if your baby is not going down and crying that whole time, you can sleep train in different ways for naps. You can, of course, let them cry for an allotted amount of time that you choose and get them up. Try again for the next nap of the day. Hour, because that's how long the nap is supposed to be, and then get them up and try again for the next nap of the day. We're on page 17, continuing this nap consolidation concept. The first nap of the day is the most important during this age because they're the most well-rested, so it should be hopefully easier to get them down for this nap. And the more well-rested they are, the better they sleep. So it's kind of like the reverse of the vicious, crazy cycle of they're overtired but they can't sleep now. The more they're rested, the better they'll sleep. The second nap of the day consolidates a little later than the first nap. So you're going to want to focus on that first nap. Then comes the second nap. This should start between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. each day. So it's kind of a wider window. Watch for your baby's sleep cues during this time. Consider how well their first nap went. How long did they sleep? When did they get up from it? Consider the 2 to 3 hour wake windows. And yeah, that's their second nap of the day. There's also a potential third nap. Some babies take it, some don't. It'll depend how the naps went throughout the day, how the night's sleep is going, the wake windows. It's just a huge puzzle that you kind of have to piece together. That's why it's good to take all those notes that I talked about. And this nap should start between 3 and 5 p.m. This nap is the only one that's only going to be between like 30 and 45 minutes. not an hour. Not all babies really need this nap, and it's the first nap to go away. Usually like at 9 months, most babies don't do a third nap anymore if they had. And the last wake window of the day, so after this third nap, if your baby takes it, or after the second nap is the longest wake window. So just consider this to know if your baby should get a third nap. Okay, and now if you haven't been following along on the PDF, you might want to, because in the next few slides, I have a more concise, I'll put it here too, visual representation of the schedule and some quick troubleshooting things if you just want to quickly reference something. So check that out. It's been on my link in bio on all my socials. It's for free, these two very colorful documents that I'll put. The page numbers, I should have said this at the beginning. Follow the page numbers on the slides themselves, not on the generated by the PDF. Something I haven't talked about that was on that previous slide, the schedule in blue that I put up, is the daily sleep duration, how much your baby should sleep in an entire 24-hour period. 2 to 4 hours of naps throughout the day is necessary for babies at this age, and 10 to 12 hours of sleep at night. And something else that I didn't mention, but that is on that blue schedule, is that babies should wake up in the morning between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. My baby, like I said, who's 8 months old, he goes to bed at 6 p.m. and wakes up like 6:30, 7 a.m. So he gets sometimes more than 12 hours. Today he slept till 8 a.m. All right, I'm on page 21, and that's a wrap. That's all the information you need to understand the sleep milestones for your baby, especially at 6 weeks of age and then 3 to 4 months of age. Everything about how their circadian rhythm develops to dictate their sleep for nighttime and daytime, when those things start to emerge, what really is a sleep regression. I learned all of this information over years. You know, my daughter's 5 years old, so I started all the research with her over multiple sources and from experience. Everything nowadays is so cite your sources, which I understand there's a need for that. But your own experience is also very valuable as a mother or father or grandparent. But most of the people that interact with me on social media are mothers, so I'm just saying mothers. So don't discount or discredit yourself. You are very important. You're the most important person in your baby's life. One note too is that changes in baby sleep take time, so try not to get frustrated with yourself or your baby. Make one change at a time, see how it plays out. Try not to get frustrated, even though that's really difficult when you're running low on sleep. Take notes, get help from people, try to be patient, get some time for yourself. One last really important note is that I know the sleep training, the crying can sound horrible. I'm such a sensitive person. I cried listening to my baby cry. I hated it, but when I say my baby was a completely different baby after I sleep trained him, like, I'm not exaggerating. Even my mom commented on that. Another note, I never let anybody come over to see the baby till like months later, except my mom. I realized after my first baby, I did not want anybody around. I needed my space, and I gave that to myself. It was amazing. Another quick tip, in case you're looking. Yeah, my mom even noticed that our boy was a completely different boy after we sleep trained him like 1,000 times. He was so much more observant, like so much happier, just content. Ugh, it was amazing. So I know it sucks, but it's worth it. And now he's set up for life. He knows how to sleep. I hope all this information was helpful, and I really hope you get some sleep. And your baby too, of course. And again, I just want to really say thank you so much for investing your time and your money in me. That's really special. I have found that I've learned so much from people online. Everything, this is like a totally different tangent, but everything about my childhood trauma healing, being an empath, like learning how to parent myself and my kids, like literally everything that I've become over the last 5 years, like in a positive way, has been because of people online, honestly, which sounds crazy, but it's really not. Like it allows us to connect with so many people that we otherwise wouldn't be connected with physically. So I know all of those people have been so important to me. So I hope that I can give back and help people in that type of way. So thank you. In the next video, it's going to be the last video. It's just some products that really helped me with the sleep journey. So if you're not interested in that, you don't have to watch, but that's what the next video is going to be about. All of those things are on the PDF as well. And the last slide, again, is just a thank you. I appreciate it so much. Just reiterating that I'm not a doctor or a sleep specialist. I'm a mom, not just a mom. I'm a mom. All of this is from my research and my experience with my kids. And if this stuff doesn't resonate with you, then don't do it. And please email me if you have any questions. I would be happy to help. And I'm usually pretty responsive on that. So thank you again and good luck. Okay, so here are a list of soothing products that I love, 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 love. They're all on my Amazon storefront. Here's the link to it. It's also in my link in bio, like above my socials. And I do get a commission from Amazon storefront, but all of these items I had before I even had a Amazon storefront. I don't have just a monetary motivation, which I've made like 20 cents on my Amazon storefront. So it's really not a monetary motivation, but there is one item that I did not have before the storefront, but I still love it. And I'll mention that. But the first thing that you'll see on page 22 there is a swaddling sack. I used this one for both my babies and they loved it. My son never liked to really be swaddled. My daughter did. She loved to be Velcroed in like straight up all the time. My son didn't like his arms in, so we would just Velcro him under the arms and he really liked that security. So we really like that. Oh my gosh. The next thing is this pacifier with a little stuffed animal on it. Like this thing, my baby will not go anywhere without. I mean, perhaps he would, but he would probably be crying. Okay. He likes, ours isn't a cow, it's a monkey. They have all different animals. And he loves just like the tactile stimulation, I guess, the tactile input of rubbing it when he goes to sleep. It really helps him soothe himself. And he like sucks on the tail, which is kind of gross, but he loves this thing. We don't leave the house without it. One note though, is that some people say that having this with babies when they're sleeping alone is not following safe sleep guidelines because it's basically a stuffed animal, which you're not supposed to have those in the crib with them. So a little note there, if you're big into following those, that doesn't follow that. But I am not taking that away, so that's just me. All right, on page 23, some more of the products. Oh my gosh, this baby wrap, this thing was strapped on me every single day, like during the day for probably up until I sleep trained him. So from like birth until 3.5 months old, he loved this wrap so much. It made him so comfortable. It's easy to get on once you learn the different wraps and stuff. Contact napped in this. I would do dishes and just do all sorts of stuff while he was wrapped in it. And it can be worn from newborn onward. I don't know the max weight because we've kind of stopped using it now that he's happier and doesn't have to be wrapped up all the time. But we love that thing. Next thing on here is this blue sleep suit. We really loved this too. I started using this when he was in that sleep regression just to like try things. A ton of people swear by it. I felt like it helped. I would definitely try it. I liked the sleep sack better. One thing, the sleep sack he can still wear because he's not swaddled in with his arms. One thing though is that you're not supposed to use swaddling their arms in or this sleep suit here when babies can roll because like it's a safety hazard. I still did when he could roll just to try to get him to sleep, but that's kind of when he was still sleeping with us. So just be aware of that. But like a ton of people love this. It was created by like a baby physical therapist. So we really like that. Okay, page 24. The first thing on here, like this was an absolute must, is the sound machine. I have this exact one for both my daughter and my son. They love it. Actually, my husband and I even use a sound machine. Just we didn't get that one by chance, but every single night we use it for both kids. So we like that one, like it's simple. This other thing on this page is the one thing that I bought after I had my Amazon storefront. It's a portable sound machine. So I was like really adamant about not taking my son anywhere during nap time because I wanted him to be well rested in his crib. But it has kind of become a little bit inevitable because there's like an appointment my daughter has to have that can't be changed bi-weekly, and it's during that time. Anyway, it can hook on to the car seat, and I brought this, and he actually slept in his car seat attached to the stroller for the straight hour that my daughter was in the appointment because of this. And he sometimes gets fussy in the car, so now I just put this on quietly in his car seat, and he likes it. So it's rechargeable. I really like this thing. I've heard a lot of people like it too. And the last thing is on page 25, these noise canceling headphones. I had these exact ones with my daughter when she was born. She's the 5-year-old now. Both she and my son and me like hate public restrooms because of how loud they are, like with the blow dryers, the echoing of the toilets. So if I take my son, my daughter's okay now that she's 5, but like if I take my son into a public bathroom, I'll put those on him. We use those for my daughter on the airplane, even like concerts, or like we went to like a carnival and I put them on my son. So he really likes those. They're adjustable. Like my daughter can still fit into those. And I use them sometimes with her when she's like overstimulated. It works for her too. So check those out if you're interested. It would help me out if you go through my link. Here it is again, and it's on all my socials. So hope that helps. Again, thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions, and much love to you.